Designer Garden is proudly brought to you by Wonder and Effecto.
Welcome to Designer Garden. Today we're on the outskirts of Johannesburg on a small holding where the homeowners asked us to do a section of the garden, which is, I think, going to be quite a challenge to Tim and the team. This is a shady area, huge rocky outcrop, which of course could be turned into beautiful features. Now, the good things about the area, there's some beautiful indigenous trees, some wild olives, there's a Causonia behind me, there's also some rose I've seen. So there's lots to start with, lots of bones to build around. And I'd like to see what the guys are going to come up with. But let's go and meet the homeowner. Tommy's having a chat with her. Let's go and see what they've got to say. We have a very interesting garden to do today, and it belongs to Juliana. Thanks for having us. Thanks for inviting the Abacus team to do your garden.
Thank you for coming. I'm very excited.
Excellent. Now, that's a very nice space. What exactly do you want the guys to do for you?
What I would like is for Abacus to create a tranquil space.
Okay.
Being the owner of a guest house in the city, the guest needs to unwind and they need an area where they can escape to.
Okay.
And that is what I have in mind for that.
Juliana, the guest house is a thatch, I see, and that rocky outcrop down there, I just think it could be really ideal for something with a strong African, possibly a savanna type feel. What are your thoughts along those lines?
My thoughts are bushveld feel with flowers and a bit of lushness. It's very important for me to have that balance and have lush and flowering plants as well, with a minimal grass.
Okay, so you want to combine the sort of pretty English garden with a bit of the African savanna?
That's correct, with the bushveld and the savanna.
Well, that'll
yes.
make for a really unique design down there because it'll give you different contrasts throughout as you enjoy this space.
Yes, definitely.
And you're happy with that?
I think so. Every garden's unique.
Absolutely.
And it's something that Juliana has to fall in love with, really. So I think we can go back to the design studio, get the guys going, get the creative juices flowing, and we'll do something really awesome for you.
Great.
Well, Tim is going to go and do the design, and we'll be back to implement very soon.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
The Abacus Gardens design team put their heads together to create an interesting and tranquil space for Juliana and her guests. The space needs to serve many functions, and this could prove to be a design challenge. With shade, rocks, and established trees already in this space, working with the environment rather than against it seems to be the best idea.
Tim, today's garden is very interesting. Huge property.
It is.
And we're doing this little corner, but what an interesting corner. Lots of shade, big trees, big rocks. So what is the Abacus team come up with?
Andre, the first time I saw this spot, I was in absolute awe of it. I mean, you've got this natural beauty.
Absolutely.
And, when the designers were working on the garden design, I was like, let's work with the existing landscape. I mean, it's boulders, it's rocks, it's trees coming out of it that have been there forever.
So was that your inspiration?
It certainly was. You've got to work with what you're given. And we're not often in our urban lifestyles given such beautiful landscape to work with. And of course, the thatch home, the thatch guest house, is also easy to take that type of theme and go with a sort of African indigenous mix of a feel.
Well, exactly. I mean, you've got all the indigenous trees to start with anyway.
That's right. So it would make good sense to keep with an indigenous feel, but we haven't gone exclusively indigenous altogether. But
Okay.
certainly there's a predominance of that because we want to celebrate all things African in this. So it's celebrating the African Renaissance. And I have to tell you, Andre, we've got the most stunning African works of art coming into this
really?
landscape. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Sounds very interesting. And the design elements in this, I see little pieces there. What are those?
I don't want to tell you too much right now.
Oh,
I
really?
think I'm going to keep that as a surprise. But what
Okay.
I will tell you is that you access the garden off the lawn here, and there's this meandering path that walks between all the trees through the forest and works its way all the way around and comes back out. And while you come through, there's various focal points, to enjoy. You've also got this deck where you can stop, rest, read a book, have a cup of tea, while you've got this stunning rock water feature opposite, which will be so soothing. Birds are going to come down to it as you're reading your book.
And all this in the middle of Johannesburg hustle and bustle.
In the middle of Johannesburg.
It's amazing, isn't it?
This is a real gem to find. I think it's quite rare.
Let's get started.
Let's go for it.
After the break, the team tackles this tricky garden and Tim and Andre discuss the African artwork.
They almost make you feel like you got to say, excuse me, when you come through here.
Welcome back to Design a Garden. The Abacus Gardens team have arrived on site with some of the plants for this interesting garden, with ground covers, grasses and a tree aloe, all part of this new landscape.
The plants have arrived. Now Tim's design calls from some quite interesting plants. Among them some of this sedum, which is a really nice little purple flower and very attractive to bees, so bees love that. Then of course one of the ground covers is going to be this plectranthus, which is part of the indigenous planting in this area. Has a little purple flower and flowers in early spring. And then of course, aside from the grasses that's going to be used, these tree aloes. Now, this is going to be used for structure as well as to bring that bushveld feel into it. We need to start planting, so I'm going to get this across to the guys.
The first order of business in this garden is to enlarge the bed space. The plan calls for more space for plants, so a lot of the lawn has to go. When preparing new beds from existing lawn areas, ensure that you remove as many of the lawn's roots as possible to stop the grass growing back.
Andre, we're in the early stages of the installation. We removed the grass where we're going to plant a flower bed. We're busy digging over the ground pretty well to make sure that we've got rid of all the roots from the grass, otherwise it's going to keep coming back. And we're also starting to dig in the compost. Now, this soil is actually very healthy.
It is.
And I think many of our viewers are going to ask, is it critical to do compost and fertilizer?
Yes, it is. Come on, let me tell you why. We always start with a two-step approach, at least. Firstly, we're going to use bone meal. That's an organic phosphate. Okay. That looks after the roots of the plants, which gives you your foundation. Then we're going to go to something which is a bit more balanced, which has got some of the other elements in. Now, the one we're going to use today is organic fertilizer from Wonder. It's called organic pellets. Okay, yeah. It's basically composted chicken manure.
Yes.
Now, what they've done as well is they've added other bits and pieces to it to enrich it. So you've got things like humus in there. Now all these things help encourage the life in the soil. Okay, so you've got all this microbial action in the soil and that stimulates other life and that helps boost the plant as well. So although you've got quite a rich soil, yeah, we don't actually know when last this was attended to, when last it got fertilized or anything like that. So adding that bit back ensures that extra boost for it and ensures that we're going to get life into our plants.
Sure, that sounds great.
Oh, it's very simple, very easy. So all we're going to do is we're going to broadcast about 150 grams per square meter of the Wonder organic pellets, and of the Wonder bone meal, we're going to do about 80 grams per square meter.
Okay, so both fertilizers, one area.
Absolutely.
Cool. Great, let's give it a try. We live in an age of cluster complexes and golfing estates, and mostly when we go into landscape or garden, we've got a very flat, very dull, boring piece of ground to landscape. But in this instance, it's quite unique because we've got a very exciting natural crop of landscape to deal with. We've got these huge big boulders that have always been here, and out of the boulders we've got olive trees growing, the wild olive, we've got a kippersol growing, and we've got several careers coming straight out of the natural rock boulder. And this makes it very exciting for us to landscape because this isn't normal for us in the landscape world, and we're going to take this existing landscape that God left behind for us and we can actually landscape around it to enhance it.
And in order to enhance it, the team removes all the plants that don't fit the design. Access around the garden is created with a circular pathway before a thick layer of compost is added.
Okay, we've reached the point where the Abacus team have removed all the plants that we don't want in the garden, and we're left with a choice as to a few, whether we should keep them or whether we should remove them. And one of them is this maybush. Now, maybush is not indigenous, but it could add value to this landscape because Juliana said she wanted an African savanna feel, but she also wanted something pretty. And of course, the maybush gets a beautiful white flower in spring. So it is a great option to leave, but at the moment it's a little bit contrived because it's been trimmed into a round ball, and that's in complete contrast to the design because the design is very informal and organic. So we're going to have to make some tough choices here, and I haven't quite decided whether it stays or goes. We'll have to see. We've also got these aloes, which are totally different to the maybushes. So there's a bit of tension between the two different styles because Juliana did say, give me pretty, but give me the sort of savanna feel as well. We've also just had the African art arrive on site. And I have to tell you, I know some of you are thinking, tacky sort of touristy African art, but this is nothing like that. This is awesome African sculptures, and I just can't wait to show you them.
Tim has every right to be excited about the artwork he's found for this garden. These Pan-African pieces are magnificent, and they bring interesting points of detail as well as added height to the garden. The sheer scale of the wooden bird sculptures is impressive.
Tim, you got to tell me about these imposing, magnificent creatures.
Well, that they are. They're imposing, they're magnificent. They're Sonofu birds.
Okay.
That's the Sonofu tribe in the Ivory Coast, and we managed to find a few of them here in Johannesburg. And I think they make fantastic sort of entrances to this garden.
They certainly do.
They're large, they're overwhelming, they're absolutely unique. They're certainly not that sort of tacky, touristy, African works of art that the tourists
They
like.
almost make you feel like you got to say, excuse me, when you come through here.
Well, they've got to humble you. You got to know your place, and they give you the sort of allure of what lies beyond, and that was very important when we chose the entrance to this garden. We wanted to create a wow, but we also didn't want you to be able to see what lies beyond.
Okay.
So we've positioned the entrance slightly to the side with these two large Sonofu birds on either side, and you kind of walk in, and it's a journey. You immediately know there's a journey, and you immediately know that there's
Very
something
clever.
really wow that lies beyond.
We're going to do now, you're going to do planting?
Yeah, it's time to position the plants.
Okay, and I'll do the fertilizing.
Great, let's give it a go.
So let's just go.
Before the planting can begin, the rest of the hard landscaping is put in place. The circular pathway is finished off, and the remaining art pieces are lovingly put in place around the garden. The team then starts placing the plants, starting at the rear end of the garden. Tim has chosen colourful foliage plants to brighten up the garden. For structure, he's using large cycads, and to complement the sharp, jagged nature of the leaves, the plan calls for softer butterfly bushes. To further enhance the feature of the boat, the guys fill it with bright red kalanchoe, which gives a great punch of colour. To emphasize the African theme of the garden, also creating a living feature, the team plants a cluster of these hardy aloe marlotti.
I met an artist recently that took photos of these aloe malofis, and they were the most spectacular photos. And I was listening to her talk about it, and she was calling them warriors. And I absolutely loved the description she gave them, because that's exactly what they are. They're real survivors. They do so well. You don't need to give them much water at all. And of course, they're great celebrations for us of Africa. And just look at their rugged leaves. And I think for any garden, if you want something very African or you want something quite contemporary, they're great options. You'll notice we don't even have a lot of roots on them, and that's how tough they are. They'll absolutely survive in any environment. And I think they're going to look absolutely great here. Now, the unique thing is that we've actually got them surrounded with Banksia roses. And Juliana didn't want to get rid of the Banksia roses because she was quite adamant she didn't want to see her neighbors. So probably in time, we're going to have to replace the Banksia roses with something a bit more African to keep with this sort of savanna feel.
When creating a tranquil space, water is important. In this garden, a rock water feature is constructed. This will bring new life to the garden by attracting insects and birds. The sound of water trickling down the feature will add to the calming atmosphere.
This area has been planted up. The soil preparation's been done. We're now going to be adding fertilizer, not only for the plants that have just been planted, but specifically for the trees and shrubs that have been here all the time. Now, the bag says fertilize along the drip line. So we're going to do just that. The drip line is where the water drips off the canopy of the tree, and of course slightly in towards that. But you don't have to go all the way up to the bark, of course. Now we're going to be using Wonder Organic Pellets, which is a chicken-based product, probably nature's oldest fertilizer. And I'll do this, and we'll see you later.
No savanna or bushveld design is complete without adding grasses. Juliana didn't want too many in this space, so the design team has kept them to a minimum. The Anthericum grasses are a great variety to use because of their height and movement in the breeze. The seeds that it generates also attracts birds into the garden. Adding plants around the water feature helps soften it, making it blend in with the rest of the surrounds. Ferns are a great option for shade and are water-loving plants, so they won't look out of place alongside this feature.
Birds are a great indication of a garden's health. And in this particular environment here, this is going to be a great bird sanctuary, largely because of the original landscape, which, simulates nature so well, the irregular nature of nature. And, there's also other aspects to this area that will make it great for birds, and that is this water feature. Birds love water. You're going to see the weavers dashing down here to drink water. You're also going to attract birds into this garden because of the choice of plants. We've chosen plants that bear fruit, and of course, that's a natural food for your birds. We've also chosen plants that will attract insects into the garden, and that, of course, the birds come and feed on the insects. There's plants such as your aloes here that your sunbirds are going to come feed from. You've got your wild pomegranate growing right over there that they're going to come and feed from the fruit. So I think when you come down here to relax, the birds are going to come down and relax with you too. Andre, look what I found.
It is an amazing little structure. Lovely boat.
It is a boat. It's from Central Africa. And, in most Central African countries, you'll find these for use as transport across the rivers. And I think it's so great for this garden because we want to keep it with the Afrocentric feel. And as you walk into this area, you go down the path and then you hit this boat. So it's great because you've got all these kalanchoe that we're planting in it as a highlight. And of course, the color is in keeping with Juliana's request to have a bit of color, a bit of pretty in a garden as well.
Okay, and you're almost done with this. So I'll just add the fertilizer.
Great, let me help you there.
The last of the filler plants in the garden is the lamium. As this trailing plant grows out, it will cover the exposed soil and help it to retain the moisture, acting as a living mulch. Lamium is a colourful shade or part-sun perennial that grows well on moist, well-drained soils.
This garden is made for late afternoons. I mean, just look at this awesome light filtering through the trees. It's really a great time of day. And we're in a bit of trouble because Juliana is going to arrive here within the next hour. So we've got a few minutes to wrap things up. But I have to tell you, whenever you landscape, you've got to consider the hard landscaping aspects of your garden, because it's often that archway or that deck or that work of art that brings out the true character and definition in the garden. And in this instance here, we've used all sorts of ideas to add unique definition and character. We've got the water feature, we've got the Makolo boat, we've got the huge Sonofu bird standing at the entrance, we've used benches here, benches there, we've got the stepping stone pathway that meanders through. All these aspects together really make the garden special and beautiful.
After the break, the team finish up the garden, and Andre is left gobsmacked.
Tim, I don't know how to compliment you and the Abacus team anymore. This is magnificent.
Welcome back to Designer Garden. The final planting in the space is done, and the garden is now complete.
Tim, I don't know how to compliment you and the Abacus team anymore. This is magnificent.
It's been a wonderful project to work on, probably one of the most exciting ones I've had to date. So,
No, it's been great. Now tell me something. Have you got to explain this? We start off with a huge grove of trees, and then you plant more.
We've done that. The reason for it, Andre, is we're right on the neighbour's property. Yeah. It's on the bottom corner of Juliana's property, and we didn't want to build a wall to screen from the neighbours. Sure. We wanted to keep in line with the whole sort of African savanna feel. So we planted some more indigenous trees. We in fact planted yellowwoods, which have a very lush green leaf, and we've done them in an irregular fashion all along the perimeter so that they give a screen, and in time I think they'll completely screen us from the neighbouring property.
That sounds really good. Now Juliana's on her way, so we better get out of here, but you've got to hand over something to Juliana.
We are. We're going to be very happy to tell Juliana that Abacus Gardens is going to give her 3 months worth of free garden maintenance for this area to make sure that the plan comes together perfectly.
Now that's exceptional. Look, from Effective side, we will also throw in a number of products to help you maintain this garden, get the color in the plants up and running, all the nice things to add to this.
Oh, that's great.
We'll leave that with you as well.
That'll be great. These plants need that. Eh?
Absolutely. Tim, nice job. We'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
Cool, man. What a unique space. A grove of indigenous trees, huge rocks. The Abacus team have transformed this into a tranquil garden very simply by adding the right kind of planting that will survive the shade conditions, brought in some hard landscaping effects, which I think really emphasizes that bushveld feel about the place. I really love this garden. It's such a tranquil space. I think it delivers exactly what the homeowner wanted. Now, to keep this garden looking as magnificent as it is, Abacus have decided to do a 3-month maintenance contract at no charge for the homeowner. And from Effecto and Wonder, we'll be giving some fertilizer, which is organic. It's specifically formulated for lawns and shrubs. And of course, I'll mention this other product as well, which is Wondersol. It's a liquid foliar feed. You can spray this onto the leaves of the plant, or you can use it as a soil drench if you like. Now, the plants have just been transplanted. They come from a nursery where they've been pampered. This will bring life back into them, keep them going, and really make them look good. Now, I've just heard Juliana's car pull up. Let's go and fetch her and show her this garden. I'm excited to see what she thinks. Juliana, you called Abacus Gardens. You said, please do something with this area of my garden. Create me a little sanctuary. What do you think?
Absolutely awesome. What a surprise.
I love it. I think this is one of my favorites as well. But let's have a look at some of the detail. There's
Great.
such a lot of detail.
Can't wait.
Starting with this boat, for example.
Beautiful contrast.
Lovely little,
Focus area.
absolutely. Well, let's go across there. And of course that bench there, nice little area for the guests to have a rest, look at the garden.
Beautiful.
And Juliana, of course, you must bear in mind that the plants were particularly chosen to be able to survive in the light available under the
Yes.
trees here.
Beautiful.
And of course your water feature, which will help attract birds.
Beautiful.
Lots of fruiting trees, which will attract birds. It's really such a nice area, this sitting area.
Very tranquil.
Juliana, now that we've had a chance to look around the garden, what is your favorite part?
Definitely where we are sitting at the
I
moment.
must agree with you. This is a stunning area.
Definitely. The sound of the water, the sun setting, view on the statues, and also the planting and landscape blends in beautifully with
Absolutely.
nature surroundings.
Now look, you'll never have to look for your guests again. You'll know where to find them.
Definitely here.
Listen, thank you very much for having us. And we've certainly enjoyed doing this project.
Thank you.
And while I really am enjoying sitting here, I've got to go.
Great.
Listen,
Have a
cheers,
day.
eh?
Okay, bye-bye.
I love what the team have done with this space. They really have transformed it. They've really turned it into a sanctuary. And I know the guests at this B&B are certainly going to enjoy that. So from me, it's cheers. And we'll see you again on another Designer Garden.
Designer Garden was proudly brought to you by Wonder and Effecto.